potentially huge shift in a federal policy is being considered after new calls for change following the Club Q shooting. When natural disasters strike, emergency managers are often fighting Mother Nature and human nature at the same time. A second city in Colorado will try a new tool to get humans to make smarter decisions in those critical moments. The only thing flashy about the place is the sign, yet it's endured for 60 years since they bought it.
And it was a little bar on East Colfax, but to us it meant a lot.
And we celebrate some people we know who have now raised $10 million to improve Colorado. Those people are you. You did that. Thank you for being a part of Next. This is a state where people mobilize instantly to help after a tragedy. Yet after the Club Q attack, there are members of the community excluded from being able to help in one key way. Gay men have not been allowed to donate blood for decades. Well, now that could change across the country. Here's Mark Salinger.
Everyone deals with tragedy differently.
Our immediate reaction was, how can we help?
Brandon Zelasco had been to Club Q many times. He knew people who were killed and injured. But he also knows he isn't allowed to help his community in a way the victims need it most.
Club Q, Pulse before that, are a reminder that we can't give back and we can't help and we can't donate blood.
The FDA says gay and bisexual men are not allowed to donate blood within 3 months of having sexual contact with another man. It left Brandon feeling like he couldn't help when the LGBTQ community needed it.
And that's what hurts the most, is that the policy is keeping us from being able to do that to help anyone.
Now that could change. The FDA told us today it's considering changing its policy for blood donation. It would determine who's eligible based on individual risk, as opposed to blanket denials for entire groups of people. The largest blood bank here in Colorado supports the change as well. Brooke Way is with Vitalant.
So Vitalant is an advocate for policies that allow as many people as possible to donate blood.
The organization took 70 units of blood to the victims of Club Q and led the study to give the FDA the data to consider changing who's eligible to donate.
A step in the right direction, but I don't think it's necessarily something to celebrate yet.
We still don't know specifics of the plan or if they would only screen certain groups of people to determine risk. Brandon hopes the next time people are in need, he's allowed to help.
We can't help our neighbors, we can't help our friends, we can't help other people in need too.
Blood is tested to make sure it's safe, and the technology to do that has advanced significantly since the 80s when this rule was put in place during the AIDS epidemic. Brandon sees this as a stigma, not a science that's discriminating against gay men.
And because of the way that blood donations work, Mark, if gay men came forward after the Club Q tragedy because they wanted to help, yes, they were motivated by that incident, but their help would actually be going to somebody else in an unrelated situation.
Yeah, these blood banks, they need blood throughout the year, not just after a tragedy. If people only donate right after a tragedy, it helps for the next time that they need a lot of blood, but it's too late for that one.
So it truly is the idea people want to help anybody in these situations. Mark, thank you. Colorado Republicans are losing one of their most respected voices at the state capitol. Rather than stick around for the smallest GOP minority in history, Senator Bob Rankin is resigning. He'll leave early next year, midway through his 4-year term. A Republican vacancy committee will select his replacement to serve the rest of the term. Rankin was on the committee that writes the state budget. It's big stuff, and he had the respect of Democrats and Republicans alike. He won't retire until January 10th, one day into the new legislative session. That allows his replacement to serve the rest of his term, plus run for 2 more full terms, perhaps, after completing that term. City of Boulder is going to try out a new tool to get people information during emergencies. They're setting up evacuation zones through a program called Zone Haven. The goal is to give people more real-time information during a disaster, because that's when human instinct often leads us to make really bad decisions. Here's Steve Steger.
Previously, you would literally get out the map, put it on the hood of the truck, draw a box.
The process of getting people evacuated in a wildfire used to be timely.
A 30-minute process, typically.
This program should help.
Within a setup is now a minute at the most.
Boulder just announced it's using a program called Zone Haven, splitting the city into 43 zones. People can now log into a website and get info about whether or not they're supposed to evacuate.
As soon as we decide that's where we want to send people or that's a message we want to push, it's out there.
Zone Haven will work in tandem with other tools the city already uses, like opt-in alerts and those cell phone Amber Alert style messages. The goal, to get people to act a little quicker and combat their human instinct.
Milling is a as a word that we use to describe collective behavior.
Dr.
And
Jeanette
collective
Sutton
behavior
studies the
is
social
very
science of emergency alerting, and more specifically, something we do as humans after we get an alert. Milling.
It's a social interaction that we have with other people to determine if we are at risk and if we should take actions to protect ourselves.
Oftentimes, a single alert isn't enough, so our instincts tell us to confirm it in other ways, like looking for smoke, seeing if the neighbors are leaving, or searching the web to find other info.
It delays the time to taking that protective action that might be necessary for people to save their lives. And that's where it becomes really dangerous. If people are looking for information and they can't find it in a really fast manner.
Boulder is hoping Zonehaven reduces the risk of milling because it shows you the map and has a spot to link you to official sources like the OEM website.
It's an excellent potential tool if it's put into the hands of the emergency managers who then utilize a significant public education campaign in advance.
So Boulder's in the midst of doing that, asking you if you live in the city, you should log into ZoneAware and check your zone, get familiar with it. They say the company is planning on an update that would create an app for folks so you can get direct alerts about your zones directly on your phone. But the key to this is really twofold. One, it's to give people information almost immediately. They can click a button and that website updates. The other side of it is it's a lot faster for them to send out messages now because all of those zones are in their opt-in alerting system. They're in the WIA system, so they can click a button, send an alert a lot faster than they used to be able to in the past.
I think when we think about maps, we think about a map on our phone that puts us at the center of the universe and tells us to go somewhere. Whereas when smart people who know about maps think about maps, they think about unfolding it out of the hood of the truck and figuring out it because you know how to read a map.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Sutton said something interesting. She said she's still a little skeptical about whether or not this gives the people the information they need to avoid that milling process, because she says even when you get a map and you're looking at a map, the research finds that unless you see yourself on that map and you see whatever the threat is, you aren't going to be able to figure things out. It's like map illiteracy because we're all so used to it now where we don't have to look at a map and try to figure out where we are.
I couldn't find my way out of a Boot Barn parking lot without a map. All right, thank you, Steve. The Environmental Protection Agency likes the look of Denver's plan to replace its lead water pipes. This swap out's going to take 15 years, cost nearly $700 million. But the EPA said today, that's actually about as well as anybody's doing it these days. About a decade ago, water testing revealed high levels of lead in Denver's drinking water. Since 2020, Denver Water has been replacing lead service lines with copper lines. This has taken a long time. They're providing water filters to homes at high risk, and they're adjusting the pH of the city's treated water to reduce the chances of lead corrosion in household pipes. Today, the EPA came out to say Denver's program is one of the most effective and efficient in the country.
Over the last 3 years of the program, we've replaced over 15,000 lead service lines. We've seen anywhere from 60 to 65% reduction in lead levels. We had initially proposed it to both EPA and CDPHE as a holistic approach and an alternative treatment technique. I think we've been able to prove that.
Denver's program is getting $76 million in federal taxpayer funding. The other $681 million will be covered through water rate payments, through borrowing, through cash reserves, and by selling hydropower that Denver Water generates. 2 years back, we, you, me, started working on something here with no idea how long it would last. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaigns began during the strictest weeks of the pandemic lockdown in 2020. You were asking for ways to help our neighbors without leaving home, ways to lift people up, to change lives for the better, close to home and clear across the state. I, for one, never imagined that what we began in 2020, people chipping in $5 for a different nonprofit cause each week, would still be going here as we're about to enter 2023. Never imagined that your generosity for our neighbors would pass the $10 million mark as it did this week. You created this force for good out of nowhere. You just made a thing that improves lives every week with the scan of a QR code on a local TV news show, like this week's campaign to buy a holiday gift for every single child in Denver's public housing. What a gift you have been to so many Coloradans in need. We know that nothing lasts forever, but as long as you're willing to keep giving, and this program exists to bring us together to do it, I promise we'll keep at it. And when we're done here, it's going to be the absolute highlight of my time spent here with you. Not done yet. An uncomfy conversation about climate change at CU, as some students say the university should address its own actions first. There's another candidate for mayor of Denver. Not kidding. This makes 22. It's a Denver institution, to the surprise of even its owners.
I am just so shocked that I made it this long.
How Pete's Satire Lounge stayed in the family and in business for 60 years. Next. CU Boulder is welcoming environmental activists from around the world this week. The Right Here, Right Now Climate Summit, in partnership with the United Nations, began today. It began with some CU students and faculty raising climate concerns that are pretty close to home. Fossil Free CU is a student-led group that's calling on CU to stop investing in fossil fuel-related companies through its endowment and retirement funds. They want CU to instead put that money into clean energy transition and green companies to back up its talk with financial action.
We have faculty here who help to write these international panel on climate change reports that inform, everyone throughout the world on the urgency of climate change. And so when I first learned that CU was invested in fossil fuels, I was super surprised and appalled, really, because it doesn't fit with that image and its reputation of being a leader in climate research and sustainability. And
Fossil Free CU estimates energy stocks account for at least $36 million in the CU endowment. They're calling for a full divestment of those funds by 2027. An oil storage site in Larimer County that illegally released dangerous chemicals is going to get to reopen with more oversight and stricter regulations. Colorado's health department ordered Prospect Energy to shut down its Krause site north of Fort Collins back in August. The health department says there were repeated air quality issues there that put the public at risk. Inspectors found that there were storage tanks on site that were leaking. The department says Prospect has installed new equipment there to control emissions and also has a fence line monitoring system around the outside, which will warn them if there's a problem. The latest candidate for Denver mayor, the 22nd, is a bit of an unknown. Sylvia Herring told me today that I should call President Bill Clinton to learn more about her. So until I'm able to reach Bill, we will continue our profiles of the few people in Denver who aren't running for mayor. Joey Quintana is a DU student studying public policy. Joey cannot run for mayor because he's 20. You have to be 30. But it doesn't mean that Joey doesn't care, especially about outreach to younger voters.
I think the younger community within Denver does not get enough credit for the knowledge that they have and the firsthand accounts that they have of the city and the problems that arise within. I think they're often pushed to the side. I'd kind of like to see a little more open dialogue with the younger community of Denver.
Tell them, Joey, they're voters. Even if they can't serve as mayor, they can still vote. Our interviews with some of the 22 people who are running for Denver mayor are on the next YouTube page. Here's the deal. If you live in Denver and you are not running for mayor, but you have a suggestion for the next mayor, email us at next@9news.com.
All right, well, outside we're gearing up for strong winds tonight and into tomorrow and even some mountain snow. Right now, though, we're still pretty calm. We're at 46 degrees at DIA. Winds coming in only at around 7 miles per hour from the north, making it feel like 42 degrees out there. But as we continue to monitor our HD Doppler radar, we have this system coming in from the west, bringing in that cloud cover and some light snow across the high country and western slope. But as we go into the overnight hours and into tomorrow, we're going to see that snow really fill in the high country, and those winds will really pick up across the eastern half of the state. So we do have several high wind warnings that'll be in effect tonight through tomorrow. Again, the majority of the eastern half of the state, from foothills to the Front Range to the eastern plains, these winds gusting mostly between 60 to 75 miles per hour. Some areas in the high country could see those isolated wind gusts up to 100 miles per hour. And then portions of the western slope, a wind advisory there, 55 mile per hour wind gusts expected. The southeastern corner of the state will be under a red flag warning most of tomorrow. That's going to be those strong winds paired with very dry air that could cause some fire danger there. But as for the high country, the opposite. We do have some moisture pushing in the form of snow, of course. So we have a winter storm warning that'll be in effect for a good portion of the high country. Then the western slope will see that winter weather advisory. Most of the area could see maybe 4 to 8 inches or 3 to 6 inches out west, and isolated higher totals up to a foot in the high country. Those winds gusting pretty strong as well. In addition to that, we'll have an avalanche watch we'll keep in effect. Tonight, 33 degrees will be our low, and tomorrow we'll see mild temperatures here in the Denver area, but those colder temperatures as you head up high.
This place seems like it's been around forever, but once it was new to them and its owners were scared.
It's an emotional day because I look back at what it was that first day and being in here and just thinking we had our own business.
We look back on 6 decades of ups and downs as a favorite place on Colfax marks a milestone. That's next. Pete's Satire Lounge has been a landmark on East Colfax for 60 years. It was on this day in 1962 that Pete and Liz Contos bought that place. It was previously just known as the Satire. Pete passed away about 3 years ago. Liz, she's still as involved as ever. She looked back with us on lessons learned over 6 decades in business.
It's been a good lifetime, just a really, really good run, and I'm thankful for every bit of it. Now what?
I'm going to show you something.
Holy cow! Oh my gosh. My name is Liz Contos. Oh. And I'm the proprietor of Pete's Satire Lounge, which was started with my husband Pete in 1962, December 1st. It's hard for me to realize that it has been 60 years. It's an emotional day because I look back at what it was that first day and being in here and just thinking we had our own business, and we were so proud of that. Oh my goodness. And it was a little bar on East Colfax, but to us it meant a lot because this was a dream that Pete had had from the time he got to this country. It was a neighborhood place. It had been here for a long time. There was a lot of history. Well, the Smothers Brothers performed here. In fact, they lived upstairs in one of the apartments. Bob Dylan, yes, he played here. That was right before we took it. It's changed a lot, but what hasn't? All of Denver has changed. And I most certainly miss Pete being with me. He had a thing with pennies. Since he's been gone 3.5 years, pennies will just show up here and there and everywhere, and you're thinking, yeah, he's still with us. So I feel blessed, and I really feel thankful for my family. I'd be very proud of you that we all pulled together and made it through. How many people stay in the restaurant business 60 years? Not many.
That is really special. I love what she said. It's changed a lot, but what hasn't? This Saturday, the Satire is hosting a party for its 60th anniversary. Bar still in the family. Pete and Liz's grandson owns the place, but Liz was quick to note, buck still stops with her. Your feedback next. Short note from Jen saying the Denver mayor's race needs ranked choice voting. That would eliminate the need for a runoff, Jen. Maybe we should look at that sometime and explain how it would work. Got a text. Can you let me know when the first mayor's town hall will be? I'm one of the candidates. And no one seems to know when and if these town halls are starting. My understanding is that there are going to be at least 2 debates for everybody participating in the Fair Elections Fund. I'd love to do one of those. All 22 candidates, maybe we could pack into a school bus and call on people like their children. See you next time.